G'day, Starlo here. So what's the strangest lure that you've ever caught a fish on? I've seen some pretty strange lures in my time and I caught some fish on them too, but I've got one tied on here today that I reckon just about takes the cake. It's called the Mussel vibe, or just referred to by a lot of people as the Muss. Now chances are you might have heard about this in the last little while. It's been getting quite a bit of coverage on ABT tournament type posts on social media, and Steve Morgan, the boss of ABT and one of the gun fishermen on that series, has been doing really well on them. He did really well in Tassie, and I watched his video clips of catching big bream on them down there, and I just had to get a couple, so I ordered a few from Callum Dowell, the guy in WA who makes them, better known as Outback Brimmer, and they arrived, and they are exactly what it says on the packet. They look for all the world like a mussel. Now your first thoughts might be, well, hang on, mussels grow on pylons and rocks and stuff, they don't swim around. That's fair enough. This thing's also a vibe though. It actually apparently does vibe in the water. I'll find out in a minute. But the other thing is that, you know, a bream or any kind of fish isn't that smart. If they see a mussel that's been dislodged and fallen off a pylon that's drifting with the tide or bouncing along the bottom, they're not going to pull up and say, hang on, I've never seen a mussel move like that before. They're just going to come over and crunch it. Well, that's the theory anyway, and it seems to be working. So I'm really looking forward to giving this thing a go and just seeing if I can actually catch a bream on it. I've come out onto one of my local bream waters. It's not a very nice day. You can probably see by the way I'm dressed that it's damn cold. There's an icy southerly wind blowing, a bit of a chop. My eyes are watering. Not a great day at all, but let's see if we can catch one on the muss. This will be fun. Sitting out here in about 2.8 metres of water. I know there's a few isolated snags out here, and I'm sort of casting towards those. They're just piles of logs and stuff lying on the bottom. I'll get the muss out there and get it down. First thing I'd say is it does vibe. It does give you some feedback through the rod, not as much as say some of the metal vibes. It's more like working a soft vibe. But what I'm going to do more than vibe it is just keep it in the spot and just give it a bit of a shake. Fish it a little bit like a cranker crab. Just keep it in there, shake it, maybe attract the attention of the fish hopefully, and see if one swims over and eats it. It's always a bit odd when you tie a new lure on for the first time. You start second guessing yourself, is this going to work or not? But there's been too many good reports about these things for me not to believe that it's going to work. Anywhere where there's mussels and other bivalves, which is most places where bream live, they certainly like eating them. The ones I catch in here often pass or throw up big chunks of shell in the live well, cockle shell and mussel shell, so they love them. Let's see if we can catch one on the muss. That's going to be fairly close, I think, to one of my snags. Let it get to the bottom, which doesn't take very long in that depth of water. Just a bit of a shake and a shuffle. Come on, bream. You've got to believe that a mussel will crawl along the bottom. I know I'm having trouble wrapping my head around that, but I ain't got the brain of a fish. I'm using the anchor function on the Motor Guide Electric just to hold myself here, so the bow is obviously facing into that southerly breeze, and the spot that I'm fishing is up here to the north of me, so I'm actually casting over the length of the boat, which is not a big hassle. Ooh, not sure about that. There was a little bit of weight there. Might have picked up some weed. It doesn't feel like it's vibing now. It's all a bit suck it and see with a new lure. I'm just going to rip it in case it's got some slime or some weed on it. It just doesn't feel quite right. You're not going to believe this. A mussel caught a mussel. Got a little, actually it's a little cockle shell, dead cockle shell with a little bit of weed growing on it, and I've picked that up. So I could feel that. just feel that the lure isn't doing what it's supposed to be. If that happens to you, you're better off to get it out of there. You don't want the fish to see it doing something unnatural and get it back in again. It goes to show how many cockle shells are lying around on the bottom in here. Got to be a major food source. There's one. Oh, yes! Wow! Oh, it's just the gentlest of pickups. Oh, it just sort of came tight. Really interesting. Wow. It's a strange fight too. I don't think it's realised it's hooked yet. Well, it's waking up now. Oh, it took me about 5 casts to catch my first fish on the muss. Oh, I'm impressed. Oh, it's well and truly woken up now. Well and truly. Oh yeah, it's a bream. Oh, I'm wondering if it might be foul hooked. It felt a bit strange to begin with. Now it's going hard. Oh, I just want to land my first fish on the muss. How good is that? Steve Morgan, you were right. Not that I ever doubted you, but it is a strange lure, isn't it? It's going to become a new one in my arsenal, I think. Let's have a decent look at this bloke. I think he's a pretty good bream. Geez, give me some now. I better get down and get the net. Oh, it's a big bream. It looks like he's hooked fair and square in the mouth. I cannot believe how long he took to wake up. It was just like a heavy weight for quite a while. And then he... Oh my goodness. It's a very big bream, I think. Oh my goodness. Oh, have a look at this beast. Oh, I think they might be right about the muss being a big fish special. That is right up there. Look at the shoulders on that thing. And there's the muss. Oh dear, oh dear. I love catching a fish on a new lure. Especially one as unusual as the muss. Alright, I probably was getting a bit carried away with him. For a second I thought he might be up there close to my PB, but I just haven't seen a big one for a little while, obviously. But I'll run him over the tape. Oh yeah, I was right. He's high 40s, he's probably around 46 or 47 to the tips. Oh, and the weight of that fish. I think I'm going to dig the electronic scales out and get a weight on that fish. Look at that. Just about fills the entrance to my live well. Ah, what a way to christen the muss. Well, I've just weighed this fish in the net on electronic scales, both taking the weight of the net off the total weight and also tarring the scales. And although we're bouncing around out here a little bit in the chop, it was bouncing between 1.99 and 2.03 kilos, which makes it My PB, I am stoked. I'm going to call it 2 kilos because it might actually have been slightly over. It's only 47 centimetres, I say only 47 centimetres to the tail tips, and yet it weighs 2 kilos. Have a look at the thickness through this fish. All right, it's an old fish. It's probably at least 30 years old. I really want to get it back in the water in good condition. There's the muss. I'm a convert. Good on you, Callum. All right, let's just give him a bit of a swim. Oh, he's ready. Oh, ready? Holy dooly. I couldn't hang on to his tail wrist. He just went. Oh boy, I'm so stoked. I don't know whether to go home or have a bit more of a fish. I've only had half a dozen casts. I guess I'd better have a bit more of a fish just to make sure it wasn't a flash in the pan, but wow. How good are these things? Ooh. Well, there you go. I only got the one fish and possibly one other bite, but I've only fished for less than an hour. I've got to get home and pack for another trip, so I'll have to head off. But it'd be a bit of an understatement to say I'm impressed with the muss. Catching my new PB bream after years and years of chasing them is really something quite special. It's probably not a lure that I'm going to use every time I go bream fishing, but it's certainly going to be there in the arsenal. One of the things I heard about it is that it does tend to catch bigger than normal fish, and wow, that certainly proved to be the case today. Maybe it's just something that they haven't seen before, those bigger, smarter fish. Definitely worth having a few in your tackle box. Interesting stuff. Until next time, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines.